Welcome. I'm so excited to be here today with Julie. We are talking a whole new, I guess, conversation topic. I haven't gone down this one before, and so I'm really excited. I am personally super interested in all of this. But before we dive in, can you give us a little bit of who you are, what you're up to? I know you've gone from attorney to now psychedelic guide. So, two worlds that kind of feel like they couldn't be more different, but tell us about you. What was the moment, the catalyst that led you from that to now, and where you're from, all the things, Julie. Let's just put it all out there.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Like, I think lawyers would be better people, nicer people, and probably happier people if they did more psychedelics. Wow, so interesting. I never thought that I would be here, right? Like, I don't think any little 12-year-old is like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Psychedelic facilitator. But I didn't ever have one of those like dreams necessarily growing up. I think for a while I did really want to be a marine biologist. Like let's talk about sharks. But when I was in high school, my debate partner got really sick. She had Hodgkin's lymphoma 4 times, and she was like also a very close friend. And so it was hard to see this girl who like actually was one of my very first friends. I changed high schools and joined the cross country team, and she was on cross country. And so I like have this image of my head of she's healthy, she's running, she's fit, and then she has no hair. She's really puffy from steroids and chemo and radiation. And she is like ostensibly dying. Like if she hadn't had this like stem cell total replacement treatment, she would have died. That was like her last ditch effort. And so, this woman who she is alive. I feel like I need to say that before I go
Yeah,
any.
yeah,
So I
totally.
live in Kansas City now. We're not from Kansas City, but she just came to my birthday dinner. She's alive.
Oh my gosh, good. Oh my gosh, good. Yep, yep.
But yeah, she was my high school debate partner. We were really close, and she said, "Will you go cure cancer?" And you're 16, and this girl, this is. I mean, my dad had died when I was little, but I had never known someone like my own age, who could possibly die. I was like, yeah, of course, Brenna. So I kind of felt like that dream was sort of thrusted on me of like, and I thought the best way to do it after speaking to some people was like you go to med school and then you pursue like a PhD track and like get really into research and focus. And I was like, okay, then I would go on to oncology. And so that was sort of the thought in my mind when I entered undergrad and was pursuing like a neuroscience and philosophy degree. And then they had this med prep class where you go in and you like can, observe and an ER and blah, blah, blah. And so there's no way to avoid blood in medical school. And I quickly realized like I could not do this. Like to this day, I don't care if it's my mother. Like if something happened, I would say like I'm gonna go call the ambulance, but I'm gonna leave. You got this. Hold it down. Like
Oh
I
my gosh.
cannot. It sends like I feel like I'm gonna pass out. It sends a wave of panic through my body. So I thought, okay, well, this clearly is not gonna happen. Never once stopped to think this also like wasn't really your dream. But I just sat down. I felt a lot of pressure from my mom, which I understand. She was paying for my education. In the US, education is so crazy, higher education. And she's like, well, then if it's not that, you need to get it together, lady. And so I sat down and made a list of like pros, cons, what I was good at, not very inspired, but I landed on lawyer. And I don't regret becoming a lawyer because it is such a unique educational experience. Like nothing is going to train your brain to think like that, like become like going through the process of law school. I took a couple different bars because in the United States, a bar, there is a universal bar, but even that bar doesn't apply to every single state. So I took the universal bar and that applied to some states. But when I moved to California, I had to take the California bar, pass that one as well. But ultimately, like after trying a few different practice areas, it felt like I subscribe to the idea like that there is a creator, that there's like a greater force. And so I think like you're in a river. I feel like we're all in a river of life, that God or creator energy is the water and it's flowing around us. And you have free will. Like you can ultimately choose to be a stubborn salmon or like a sticky starfish and cling to the rock. And I was really clinging to this rock of like, I invested sunk cost fallacy. I invested so much time, but eventually I felt like the river overtook me and it pushed me off. And I got into coaching first. I pursued a coaching for certification, which I loved and it was great. But I got into psychedelics just for my own personal healing because I had some like remnants of anxiety and depression that just weren't healing. And from there, even though I pursued it for myself, I found so much success and it's fast and it's sustainable if you do it integratively. And people were so curious about what I was doing for myself. And it felt like, okay, river, like I'm listening, like the river seemed to be pushing me in this direction. And now I feel very rooted that this is what I'm meant to be doing. I truly always feel in my zone of excellence when I speak about it and when I get to facilitate. And I love what I do.
Wow. Oh my gosh. It's so, it is so interesting. You never know where you're going to land until you really start listening to that intuition. And for you to, you made a pause there and said, like, I don't know if it was ever even my dream to go through the doctoral kind of pathway. So just like then allowing yourself to stop and recalibrate and really go after more of what was calling you really in the end is, yeah, now look at you. Look where you are. It's amazing, right? I
I
can only imagine it lights you up every day to like be actually following something that you really feel aligned with.
I know that there's a lot of like judgment from old lawyer friends, from people who grew up with me who definitely thought I was going to become like a doctor, even from my mom. Like my mom is sober, won't even take like a painkiller if she's prescribed one. So there's a lot of like preconceived notions, and I come up against a lot of or assumption. But at the end of the day, and I was thinking about this earlier as I was reflecting, like I am happier than I've ever been, and I continue to get happier every year since have found psychedelics. And it's like that to me, I think it's John Lennon or whatever, right? Like a teacher asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said happy, and she said like, I don't think you understood the assignment. He said, no, I don't think you did. Like,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Couldn't be truer, right? Seriously. What, like, so you said you started to kind of experiment, dabble in all of that for your own anxiety side, depression side. Like, what was maybe that catalyst that really you realized it wasn't just curiosity anymore? It was more of like your calling.
so I had experienced psychedelics more like light recreationally a couple of times, like I would say maybe four. And then I was running a nonprofit. This is when I lived in California, and I had a friend I met at my coaching certification, and she like knew I had a background as a lawyer. Hey, will you come run my nonprofit? Yeah, like definitely, I want to give back. And so I'm running that, and we're working very closely with the team in Colombia, and the Colombia team is run by an expat. And so he came back to the country, and he's like, let's get dinner. I've never met you in real life, so we're talking. This is all just very like, it is so serendip. Like I could not have planned any of this. And he says, hey, I'm investing in a company. I'd love to get your feedback. And the company turned out to be a microdosing company. And so he handed me these like capsules. He was like, hey, like, let me know what you think. But it was very, so the psychedelic experiences I'd had were like very like facilitated, meaning like they were structured and like I understood the process. But microdosing was like, what is this, bro? So I started, there still aren't a lot of great resources out there, right? I started reading research papers because I have a background in science. I read How to Change Your Mind, which is a great book. Although Michael Pollan is a scientific writer, everyone can read that book. It is amazing, and it will help change your mind and perception on psychedelics. I pursued facilitation through different organizations, and really again, it was just like for myself. But because I was already coaching at the time and sharing about my journey, and I had a facilitated ayahuasca experience that I shared openly, I started sharing my microdosing, not as like a sales tactic, but as like, this is what I do. I never want to feel like I'm gatekeeping. I feel like I'm very
Yeah.
transparent with my clients, always have been around like, I'm not trying to like hide a secret from you about like what I've done to work on myself. And people, the response was just so wild of like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. Can you help me do this? Can we work on this in our coaching? And I was like, I mean, even I had resistance to like doing it,
Yeah.
facilitating it for someone else, but it just became so undeniable that that's where it was going.
That's so, yeah, it is. And I really appreciate you saying that about like the gatekeeping. I think that there's so much of that. I think people just in this world, in whatever world, really, right? And like the more honest you are, people can take it or leave it and really learn from you if they're wanting that. And so obviously that is what they're doing. For those like that are new to this space, including myself, how would you describe what microdosing really is beyond that, like, the buzzword microdosing?
Yeah, so just to get like to clean up a few things like before we really jump in, microdosing is a process of taking less than a full dose of something. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners have probably heard like microdosing GLP-1s. So that just means you're not taking a like whatever the full normal prescribed dose is, and I'm not an expert, so I couldn't even tell you like the measurement. But at my work, I work primarily with psilocybin, aka magic mushrooms, and the sort of minimum full dose, and this isn't like there isn't a number out there that it is right or wrong, but like what you traditionally hear is like 2 grams. 2 grams is the full dose, like at minimum. A hero's dose, that something your listeners may have heard of, maybe not, is like 4.5 grams. But in microdosing, you're taking like a tenth to a 20th of a full dose. So you're not going to have any of the perceptual effects, meaning like no Alice in Wonderlanding, no sacred geometry or wild colors or whatever, but you are producing positive effects in your brain. So that increase in neuroplasticity, we're really just thinking like neural modulation at the end of the day, because it's like addition, subtraction, reinforcement, reconfiguring. And you're doing it because you want those brain effects, but you don't want to be incapacitated in any way. You want to be able to go about your day. So when you microdosing, you pair it with what research calls intentional relearning. But what I really say is like any tool that is reinforcing a behavior, a thought pattern, a practice, for instance, mindfulness, that you want to see more of in your life, you're going to create sustainable change. So you're not just going to have a cool experience. Like a lot of people will say life is a little sparklier on their on days, right? Like, again, you don't see anything that isn't there, but maybe you notice the beautiful maple tree you have in your backyard that has been there for probably longer than you have. But do you always like appreciate it? Do you see how beautiful it is? Do you like understand like how magnificent and amazing a tree is, and like the system that lives underneath it? Like you just have more awareness and appreciation. Big feelings are awe and wonder. For the moms out there, a lot of them experience less reactivity and more responsiveness. And so you see a lot of positive benefits in your day to day, but unless you're integrating, you're not going to see a substantial change in your overall life, which like that is my focus. It's always integration.
Okay, so what does that mean? Tell me. Like
So,
unpack that.
okay, like I'm just gonna, and I don't know exactly like what you speak to your clients about, but I'm just gonna use like an example. Like, let's say this is a very basic one. I'm sure every like one out there has had this breakthrough. They realize, hey, like I scroll,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
scrolling isn't helping me, and I get to really break the habit of scrolling, right? And so let's say you have this like huge breakthrough in a session and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm not scrolling anymore and blah blah blah, and you feel so empowered, right? Like I'm not trying to be um cruel here. But you feel really good in the moment, and then you leave the session, and then what do? You probably pick up your phone and you go to Instagram and you start scrolling. And
It's
what does
such
that?
a habit, right? Yeah.
You haven't integrated the breakthrough. You have the
Mm.
knowledge, you have the desire, but the follow through of embodiment isn't there. So integration essentially is embodiment. It's like, are you doing the thing that you said you were going to do? Are you implementing whatever the breakthrough was? And that could even be like a breakthrough of realizing like, hey, my relationship isn't working. But do you go have the difficult conversation, or do you like ultimately end the relationship? Maybe not, because you feel really empowered in session and you feel really clear, and then you get into like the conversation and it's messy and it's hard and you don't do it.
Okay, that makes, yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense. So then when you're talking about microdosing as a way to move from like that good to great stage, can you unpack what that means maybe in the neurological and emotional side?
Yeah, so my favorite thing that psychedelics do is quiet our DMN. That's our default mode network. It's a series of interconnected structures. A big one is the posterior cingulate cortex, and it is where we go to engage in self-referential thinking. So that can be like, man, I suck. Oh, I look fat in these jeans. Like, no one wants to listen to what I have to say, right? Most people's self-referential thinking isn't super nice. I call it the Regina George of our mind. It's kind of the girl who's like talking down to you all day, but it's also the part of your brain where you are just like, you're somewhere else, meaning like maybe you're in the shower and you're thinking about the argument you got into with your husband. You're like, man, I should have said that. That really would have showed him. Or you're thinking 2 weeks in advance, like, oh my God, that weekend's going to be so crazy. My son has hockey and my daughter has a cheer competition. Like, oh crap, how am I going to do it all? And you're anywhere but now, right? Be here now is like something you hear a lot in the psychedelic community. And also like research out of Harvard tells us happiness isn't how hot you are, how fast your car is. It really is like, how often are you in the present moment? How often are you truly just engaged with like what is happening? Like, even if you noticed your mind has wandered listening to this podcast, like, can you bring it back? I guarantee you, the more you can bring it back, the happier you're going to be. So what psychedelics do is fMRI scans show us that psychedelics decrease the blood flow to those areas in the DMN. So they kind of like, it's a kill switch a little bit. Not that your like brain is shutting it off or those parts aren't going to work, but if we're decreasing blood flow, thereby decreasing like the activity in the brain in those areas, then we are forcing ourselves to become more present, and ultimately happier. And from like an emotional standpoint, what I like to say is I used to really struggle with anxiety, and I was a big avoider. And that could look like drinking. It also looked like emotional eating, binge watching on Netflix, because the emotion felt really scary. And it felt like if I were going to engage with the emotion of anxiety and whatever it was going to like tidal wave me, right? Take me out. But what's cool about psychedelics is like you still have the emotion, it doesn't go away, and you're still here, but it creates this little thing I call a bubble of response. So instead of feeling like your emotion is going to bear hug you, you can like choose to what degree you want to pierce the bubble and play with it and start to titrate and like microdose the feeling so that you can process it with more safety, because ultimately what stops us from emotional processing is feeling like it's unsafe, it's scary, it's too overwhelming. So so many people just avoid instead of learn how to emotionally process safely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so true, right? It's like actually putting yourself in the situations and the scenarios. That's how you are going to move forward these bigger feelings. But if you can't even get there in the first place, what's going to help you regulate that, help you intentionally show up for that? And it sounds like this is a pretty amazing way to do that. How can psychedelics support nervous system regulation? Is that more in that mental side of it, or more in your, what did you say, the
DMN.
DMS? Yeah, DMN. So yeah, how can they really support the nervous system regulation?
Do you ever have like one of those serendipitous moments? Because the thing that I really wanted to talk about next, like, is in direct response to this question, but I had no idea that you were going to ask the question.
No way.
Yeah, so I think there are so many great somatic practitioners out there, right? And we talk a lot about nervous system regulation, and like you can do some really great work just being in session with like a person whose nervous system is regulated, right? Like that is what we're calling templating. But I will say, and this is something I discovered for myself after I had knee surgery. And what I would do is I would microdose and I would go to a cold plunge because I was cold plunging for my knee. But what I found was that I was increasing my vagal tone. So your vagal tone is like how quickly you can bring your body back down out of fight or flight. So like let's say you get in a car accident, your vagus nerve, like your nervous system response is going to be super high, right? Because it is very literally life threatening, and you know the vagal tone might take longer to get out of something like that. But if every time like your boyfriend sends you a text that has like weird punctuation, you're increasing your fight or flight response and you're staying there for super long, you're being really activated and you can't bring it down, that is a sign that you have poor vagal tone. So what I was doing was I was strengthening my vagal tone by sitting in the cold plunge for like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and microdosing. And I was teaching my body how to stay regulated in that intense environment. And I don't want to say I'm like penetrable now, but like you really like it takes a lot to fluff me. And I might get like flustered for a second, but I very quickly can down regulate because I did so much like true experiential work. And so now I think like, yeah, coaching is great, but I always am telling my clients, like, we got to get you out there in the environment because until you're truly activated, and I don't want anyone to like go, you know, get in a car crash, but I did jump out of a plane and microdose this summer. And I was like, that was very strengthening.
Oh my gosh, no kidding. Seriously. Yeah, but it is. You have to step up to those things that really scare you sometimes. Get out of that comfort zone. And so are you saying that this then helps the emotional regulation of that because you're, I guess, more willing to do it?
Yeah, so I had a date once with a guy who was trying to understand what I did. And he was like, okay, so microdosing and not doing anything with it is kind of like taking steroids and not going to the gym. Like, you think like steroids don't make your muscles for you, right? Like, microdosing isn't like increasing your vagal tone or regulating your nervous system. You still have to go do something. But when you do it strategically and you do those things that you know are going to be activators and you like create safety in your body, right? So it isn't as simple like I'm just going to get in a cold plunge. You also have to be the person who's like willing to sit with the discomfort and breathe through it. But if you can't meet the like literal physical pressures, you're never going to safely meet the emotional ones that come like from being in relationship or conflict or, you know, anything that adult human beings encounter.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. So, through your personal experiences, like how have you learned, well, maybe more so like what have you learned about surrender and the control and the trust through doing this yourself?
You know, I really like to be facilitated for when I'm having a larger experience. Not that I have, like, I don't think that I'm unsafe. Like, I know exactly what's going to happen, but there is something there that, like, when I have a facilitator, I just completely let go and I meet the experience and I go super deep. And I know this isn't dropping tomorrow, so I don't feel weird saying it, but like, I'm taking myself on two journeys this weekend. I'm testing out a formula. My international retreats are going to have a day of LSD as well. So I'm taking myself on a psilocybin journey tomorrow, like so a larger dose, not a microdose, like a full dose. And then I'm taking myself on an LSD journey on Sunday. And I do wish that I had a facilitator here in town because it is just like, it's so powerful. And so it's not just something like, it's not a marketing tactic. It's something I really believe like having a facilitator makes a huge amount of difference. But I will say, like, an overarching lesson that is just strengthened for me every single time I have an experience is that like life is meant to make us softer. So I just like everyone else have had uh unfortunate events, curveballs, like loss, grief. I've dealt with some things in life, and every one of them has just been an opportunity to become more loving. So I think some people let life make them harder, and they just get like accumulate evidence that life sucks, like people suck, like
Yeah.
this isn't fun, right? And they become grouchy, hard, mean, cruel. And I have become the opposite. It's like I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, but like, slap one cheek and turn the other. Like I feel that's a lesson I've really learned through plant medicine. And I like to think that like life is like a river. Life is like a river and I'm a rock. And the rock just gets smoother as life goes on. So that's a huge gift. And it helps me surrender more because I just believe life is always happening for me.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. Taking the good out of that, you always and as you said at the beginning, like finding the fun in things also, right? Happiness, fun. Yes, finding, oh my gosh, it's finding the gratitude for every day. Your half is your what do they say? Your cup is half full, not full empty, right? Or half empty.
It's half full. Yeah. Yeah. It's half full,
It's
not
half
half
full.
empty. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do you see like a common belief or pattern when women show up and that they're ready to release? Is there something really like common in that?
I think as the world gets more and more divisive, like, and I'm not really actually a conspiracy theorist, so this might sound a little kooky to hear for me to say, but like, I really feel like the media and politicians really want us to hate each other. And they get power when we feel like it's us against them. And at the end of the day, like, I don't care what my neighbor, like who they voted for. I actually don't think they're the problem. Like, if we look at the state, well, I live in the United States. If they look at the state of the country, guess who's the people in power are the problem, right? And I'm not saying I hate them either, but I think when you have a larger plant medicine experience, you realize that separation is an illusion, that we are all one, that life is a hologram. And I know if you've never like had that experience or like maybe don't subscribe to that belief, it can feel kind of like, what is this girl talking about? But I really feel like whatever I do to someone else, I do unto myself. And I think that about everything. Like when I experience a judgment towards someone, I always put up the mirror metaphorically and think, what is she triggering in me that I'm jealous of? That I want, that I judge myself for. And so having that experience and just seeing that that's true, I think creates a more loving society. And there are always going to be some people who are power hungry. I do think you have to be kind of a power hungry, delusional person to get into politics. Like you're so obsessed with seeing your face on TV and like hearing your voice broadcast and everyone. Maybe people like are like, well, that's rich because you're on social media talking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, maybe that is, right? Like, again, we're all together. There is no separation. But to have that, I think is really powerful, especially in a time when I feel like we're not angry at the right people. And the people who actually we should be angry at are the ones who keep making us angry at the wrong people.
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally well said. I mean, and you said like that power versus the media power, and just like everyone's pinning everyone against each other instead of, yes, being the one. Yeah. What fascinates you most about the neuroscience behind psilocybin and how it really does impact the thoughts and the pattern and emotional healing?
I think that there's still like so much that's unknown. Like we could take a high dose of psilocybin and get in a scan, and we can see all this stuff on an fMRI, and that's cool. And we can explain like stuff with the DMN. But for instance, we're not 100% sure like exactly why we have these like visual effects. And it is like it's kind of like the ocean, there's some stuff we know about it. There's a lot that we don't. But it feels like this is a gift that we have access to a different like realm of conscious, like they're called non-ordinary states of consciousness. And they can be achieved through other things like breath work, right? It's not just psychedelics or eating some mushrooms. But I think I like the unknown. I like the idea of the ocean. I'm not married or in a relationship, but I feel like I'll know when it's my person when I feel like they're an ocean. Like I'm always learning more about them and discovering, and I'm not
You're
just like,
moving from river to ocean.
yeah, I like water. There's a
Yeah, I love it.
song that says like, I don't want to sit across the table from you wishing I could run. And that's how I've always kind of felt in a relationship ultimately. So when I meet my ocean, I will know that that's the person.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's a great analogy, Julie. I love that. Yeah. So you work with people. I want to go into both things like retreat. Are you still one-on-one also in terms of coaching through this, or do you mainly work in retreat worlds now?
So I love retreats are where I feel like most of my zone of excellence. I love the retreat space. There's nothing else like it, like getting to really like tune in and have this experience with 5 to 6 women like in a weekend. That is my favorite place to be. But I also love microdosing, and I love I was talking to this older guy on a plane who like did not understand what I did, but he was like, "Oh, you're in change management." I guess I am. So I really love working like I'm thinking about my one-on-ones right now. Like there's a structural engineer and a fellow entrepreneur and these women who like are up to really big things and are using microdosing as a tool to make their brains work for them instead of against them and to really see how good it can get. And so I love that space as well. And there is like it is one-to-one coaching. There are like group settings as well. Because I know some people kind of prefer that like accountability and community. And there's a great DIY option for people who are just like, I want to sort of see what's available to me, and I don't know if I'm ready to jump all the way in, or maybe I feel like I have a busy month and this feels more doable. So yeah, it's kind of there's a wide variety. I love both, but I will say like retreat, I'm definitely expanding the number of retreats and things moving forward.
Yeah, that's so awesome. For someone listening who's curious but like hesitant, where's the best place to start?
Yeah, I mean, here's what I always say, and this isn't for me, this is from like indigenous teachers. I don't think like you decide to do mushrooms. I think mushrooms decide for you to do them. And I know that also sounds a little kooky, but at the end of the day, like mushrooms have a mycelium, like they are sentient in some way, like they're communicating, kind of like tree roots communicate with each other. And I do feel like there's a strong energetic component to psychedelics, and specifically to psilocybin, that science is never going to be able to explain. So if you're feeling the call, I would say they're probably calling to you. And if you're like firmly like, nope, this isn't for me, that's okay too. I love that. I love the assuredness. But if you're feeling the interest and there's a fear there, I just want to say like microdosing, especially, you're not going to feel anything. Like truly, that is what microdosing means. It is fully sub-perceptual. You're not going to feel anything in the way that you feel a glass of wine or even a Benadryl. So don't let the fear of like, I'm going to be out of control, I'm going to lose my mind, or my brain's going to get scrambled, or whatever. Like, that's government propaganda. None of that's real. And, I always tell people the first time, we're going to make sure that your schedule is cleared. Like, if you have kids, someone else is watching them, and you're just able to be in the moment and to experience whatever emotions may come up, because that might be true. You might have some emotions, but like, you're going to be just fine.
After all that you've seen, what do you believe about healing that you didn't before?
I think so. When I really struggled with anxiety, I was like, man, I just like, I don't know if I ever thought I was broken, but I definitely felt like there's something that needed to be fixed. I really hate that word. Like I actually think what needs to be fixed is just like you letting go of everything that society, your family, like everything that happened to you since birth, like that is what needs to be fixed. And I just mean like that needs to be removed. It needs to be dusted off. But like you at your core are perfect. Like your soul, yourself, capital S, your essence, whatever you like believe in, that is something that can never, it's like a diamond. It's so pure. It can never be like messed up. So I hope that you can like, instead of thinking about fixing it, it's almost like in my mind, like cleaning yourself, right? Like truly like giving yourself a good deep clean. But it's like there's no part of you that's broken.
No, gosh, no. I'm with you. I don't like the word fixed either. It's yeah, loaded. Sorry, my dogs are going crazy. I hope you can't hear them. So, okay, tell me about your retreats because I know that this year coming up, you've really loaded the calendar with them. Like, what does that look like? What's yeah, what do they look like? You're all over the world now, really, it looks like, which is incredible. And they're a few days, a week. Like, what does it entail?
Yeah, your listeners are probably like, this girl's gonna do LSD. These retreats sound crazy, but the LSD retreats are only my international retreats. So one, there's gonna be a retreat over New Year's Eve in Costa Rica, and one in Mexico in May. So those are longer because they have the 2 days. But my like bread and butter, the tried and true formula that like I have very successfully, like so many women have had a positive transformation. The very first, it's 4 days. The very first night we have dinner together. I like to keep them really small, 5 to 6 women, because then we truly form a connection. You're not just a face in a sea. So like there's these ayahuasca retreats in Costa Rica where they have like 60 to 70 people like per
Wow.
cohort. And I'm just like, how, what? No, that none of that is what I want for myself or from this experience. But I'm also a breathwork facilitator. So that night we do breathwork together. And I always
Amazing. Oh
tell
my
people,
gosh.
yeah, I mean, the breathwork is meant to simulate a psychedelic experience, but obviously it's much shorter. And I'm like, you are in control tonight. So, exercise it because tomorrow, like the mushrooms, you are no longer in control, not in a bad way, but like it is a surrender. And kind of coming back to your lesson about control, like I tell people the next day when I give them their flight instructions, you can only have a bad trip if you refuse to let go. Like letting go is the way to, it's kind of like in the water slide when the little kid gets scared and they're trying to like put their hands up and that's when you get hurt, right? Like you just gotta put your hands across your chest, buddy, and like come out.
Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a huge, and it's such a big metaphor for life, right? Truly the only way out is through. And the more you try to control the situation, the worse it gets. That is when people get hurt physically and like metaphorically, emotionally. So you have very clear flight instructions. Everyone's dose is different. It depends on what they've done before, what they would like to do, what they feel comfortable with. We set intentions, we bless the mushrooms, we talk about mantras and anchors and all that good stuff. I facilitate in a therapeutic style, but I'm not a therapist, meaning like everyone lays down. They have an eye mask. It is an inward experience and journey that kind of plays out like a movie. But I will say the difference between like a therapist and me is like if you're having a very emotional experience and you just want a hug, I can hug you, right? Like, I'm not going to touch you without your consent, but if you would like a hug, I can give you a hug. The experience like that is about 4 to 6 hours, and everyone kind of comes down at the same time. We have a nice dinner. Everyone's like, what was that? That was so cool. I'm like, yes, it was. Like, just enjoy the day. Jump in the pool. I always make sure there's like a nice pool or hot tub, something like that for people to enjoy, and a beautiful setting because mushrooms are very music motivated. So there's a whole playlist that like happens during the experience, but they're also very connected to nature. So it is good. Like go look outside, right? Like look at the flowers. Like, you're gonna blow your mind in a good way. And then the next day is a combo of integration through exercises and integration through play. So I always say one of my top core values is joy, is play, and play is an effective teacher. We don't only have to learn through pain. So we'll do something that is like connected to the environment. So for instance, we were just in the Ozarks, so we rented a boat, right? And had like a fun boating day. But then I have very specific breakthrough exercises that are meant to help you take the journey and integrate it, embody it in your life. So you go through that exercise. The next morning, I can take everyone through a microdosing masterclass so they can use that as integration throughout their month-long experience. And we set up our mini mind. So for the next month, we have a group chat open. We have 3 integration calls. So it's not like I kick you out and say, okay, well, have fun, like figuring that out in your real life. Like I'm there with you, making sure that when the challenging moments come, and they will, that like you have the support to embody it in your day to day. And yeah, that's 4 days. And those are my retreats.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And yeah, I really appreciate that like support for, going forward. I think especially as someone that maybe comes into doing these kinds of things as like the new one, I
Yeah.
feel like they probably really value that extra kind of hand holding through the month as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I would even say there's a woman who's going on her 3rd retreat, right? And she like still gets a lot out of integration because it's every journey is different and you're going to meet a new challenge in every one. And you don't know what you don't know. And it's like training for a marathon is not training for a triathlon. And yeah.
Do you come like as your guest, do you come thinking like, oh, this is what I feel like I'm going to be working on? Or is it like you have no clue?
Do you mean me or, oh, as the guest?
No, as the person itself.
Because sometimes I do know what I think they'll be working on. Um, Yeah, so there's a lot of prep emails as well. So I should say that, like, I'm not just like, okay, come and we'll figure it out. Like, you feel very comfortable leading up to it.
Yes,
Not just like a
absolutely.
cold introduction. So in a lot of the prep emails, we'll talk about like, okay, it's important to have a clear intention. And I want you to think about something that feels powerful to you, that you want to put your energy behind and to, sit with that maybe in meditation or journal about it. And I always say, you're going to get exactly what you need, but that might not be exactly what you want. So I will say, I have had many an intention that I went into the journey with that did not get that specific thing out of it. And that's why I love this one intention. It's from A Course in Miracles. I think it's a great intention to start your day, but it's where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to who? And I think it just really opens you up to like, kind of like, I grew up Catholic and there was this one like hymn we always just sing in mass. I was like, lead me, Lord. And I kind of feel like that's the ask. Like, let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
And
Is it easier almost to come that way? Easier to come like open expectation, like not knowing?
So when I first started, before I even really, well, I guess a little bit when I was like beginning this business, I'm like facilitating for other people, but definitely my first sit when I had someone facilitate for me with ayahuasca, I wanted like this business clarity. I was very new to business and, I wanted someone to tell me like, what was I doing wrong or how am I going to make this profitable? And man, I was so attached to that. And I allowed whatever came up to come up. And I had a really beautiful experience. And what I got out of that was definitely so life-changing. And I did integrate it. But then again, the next time I came to sit with plant medicine, I was like, tell me about my business. And it's like, but like looking back, also, I feel like what I got out of the first one ultimately did help me with my business. But I thought that I was really attached to
It
it.
had to look a certain way.
Yeah, a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's also another thing, like, right? You always hear manifestation, like the how is not my job. And for some people, that can be really like difficult to understand, but the how is truly not your job. So I think if you can get to the space where you're entering the experience with more openness, you're going to probably have an easier time integrating because you're not going to be so like pissy that it didn't look exactly how you thought it would look. But, babe, I'll work with you either way. But I think being
Totally.
open is like, it's easier for you.
That's just like a life lesson right there. Totally. Okay, so to wrap up, what has been your most profound personal takeaway from the last year, let's say?
Kind of the how. I mean, I felt like I already was embodying, the how is not my thing, but I lived in San Diego for 5 years. I love San Diego. I love my community, but it never really felt like home. And I had been praying. I had gone into many a journey with the intention of like, okay, where am I moving? And one day, Kansas City just like popped into my heart. And I was like, oh, like that's closer to home. Like that feels really good. It felt really natural. And then during the next journey I took, I was like, yes, go to Kansas City. And so I came to Kansas City originally with the intention of opening up this like other laser business, like a laser for muscle and tissue, not for like hair, but all lasers are cool with me, I think, or most of them. I don't want to say all. And that ultimately, like after some trials and tribulations, I was like, I don't have the space to fully do both of these. Like I can't give my 100%. So I'm going to let that go. But if I hadn't moved to Kansas City, there's like so many different things that wouldn't have happened that have been really, really beautiful in my life this year. And even though I'm still not 100% sure, like I want to buy a house in Kansas City or like live here forever, I'm really grateful that I trusted myself in that nudge and like fully leaned into my intuition because this year has not made any sense and it has not looked how I thought it was going to look, but I got some really big wins this year and it wasn't because I like had it all perfectly mapped out in my calendar. It was because I'm just really intuitive and if something seems like the thing that my body or my intuition, highest self, like God himself, who knows what it is telling me to do, then I'll do it and it works for me.
You totally said the word that I was going to say to you, trust. Like you just trusted. And I think like we all need more of that in life just to like follow that gut instinct, that intuition and trust what feels right to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where can we find you? More of you? You now have a podcast, your retreats, all the things.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a question about psychedelics, you can definitely come find me on Instagram at Julie Cyvonne, JuliCyvonne. I'm very friendly. I'm happy to answer a question. But if you're like, I don't even want to talk to this girl, if you just DM me the word journey, you can get a free quiz about finding out whether microdosing is the right thing for you. And I don't even know because ManyChat sends it to you. So you can totally bypass talking to me if you're like, I don't want to do that. You can find my website at the same thing, juliecyvonne.com. There is a retreat page with all of the dates and my retreats are filling up. They are going to sell out by the end of the year. So as like they fill up, I'm removing the ones that are no longer available. So if you're like, I thought you said all these places and it's not there, like that one's just gone. But I'm doing my best to keep that like really tight. So I never am advertising one that isn't available. And then come listen to my podcast. It is an experiment, which is the best way to like tee it up. But it is the Inner Trip 365 Days with Plant Medicine.
Amazing. I'll make sure everything's tagged along the way there too. And yeah, go check out her retreat pages because some of them look, well, they all look pretty incredible in different locations all over the world. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing everything with us.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a super cool conversation. I was excited to get to know you better as well.
Thank you.